Okay, so now in this video lecture, we're going to talk about the method part, the method section, the third chapter. Or third section is usually the third one. And in here, this is kind of like a list that you need to make sure that you tick and you say, yes, I have it in my method section. You don't really have to follow this order. It's a suggestion if you follow this order of how you will discuss and how you will address all of these elements, but it's not really that you have to do it like that. You can propose a different structure, but as long as you discuss all of this. So when you are preparing for your paper, this assignment, just have it next to you and make sure that all of this have a tick, like you discuss all of this. So something that I really like about the quantitative method discussion is that it's usually very clear, very structured as it's written in here. It's very clean, very lean. It's not a lot of extra things. So that I think sometimes in qualitative, because you want to show more reliability and validity, you talk a lot about many things, and sometimes it's a little bit boring from the reader perspective, but needed because you need to show more and you need to be more transparent. But in the quant, I think it's very lean. It's much shorter. It's very clear. So that's the first point. Try to be clear, clean, and very structured. Then the first thing that I would suggest you to discuss, and remember, this is my suggestion that you start with this, but you can decide, is to discuss the study design and the data collection. And this is basically that you explain why is the quantitative method relevant? Why it's usually one paragraph that you say like the study design of this research is in line with the ontological and epistemological assumptions of related to the phenomenon. Like we assume that there is objective reality in there, and we want to measure that reality objectively, generating empirical objective data. So remember the research philosophy lecture. So try to, in one paragraph, just try to justify why you're doing why you're doing this quantitative study. That will be taking the study design and the justification of the design. Why quant? Why are you doing quant? So you tick this. Then data collection is very important also because, and they are kind of linked, because in study design, I would say is justifying why it's like that. And the data collection, you kind of show what you are doing. So, or what you did to collect the data. So it's very descriptive, very transparent of what you did. So you will say like, so the design is like this, is quantitative. We want to collect objective information, quant information, quantitative data. And to do that, we did it like this. We prepared a survey based on previous literature that was anchored with the literature review. We made sure that the questions that were included in the survey were previously tested in previous research, and we made sure that all questions were kind of translated if needed. Before sending the survey, we answered between us to check if there was no typos, something like that, and then we sent the survey to this, and I will link it to that, but we sent it to, I don't know, 2,000 potential respondents, and then I don't know, 20% answered, and then as you can see, it's very descriptive, this part, like this what we did. And you don't need many references in here. In here, I think you need quite a few, because you are justifying, and in here is only just to benchmark your choices. We're doing a survey. A survey is the data collection method that we're using. We are in line with previous research in similar topics. So maybe you can cite a paper who studied happiness through surveys. You'll have a lot of references on that. So this is much more descriptive, and this is justifying more kind of theoretically, philosophically, that what you are doing. So once you tick these two, then you move to the study setting. It is another paragraph where you discuss the setting, the context of your study. So you will discuss what type of students you are interviewing, and then that very important question, if you are interviewing only students who are current students, or maybe you are also including people who recently graduated, and why. All of this is in the study setting. The context, and again, it's kind of descriptive, but you need to justify a little bit, like, for example, this kind of choices. Why only Nordic countries? Why only Sweden? And why only students who are currently studying? So you need like 1 or 2 references just to justify. Then we have the sampling of the participants, and everything is kind of the same. Show what you did, but also justify. Here is also the same. In here is just the general setting, 1 paragraph of the general, the big picture, but here is the opposite, the micro, the details about the participants. So who is a potential participant? What are the kind of guidelines that you had? What are the characteristics that you were looking for in these participants? So you will describe all of this in here. Also in here in the sampling, you can already mention how many actually answered. So you say like 150 answered, and then they answer in a period of 2 days, something like that. So just make sure that you describe how you sample, justify why you sample with. You can use 1 or 2 references again to justify your choices, and you can describe your sample as well. So it should be also like 1 paragraph. So once you tick all of this, it should be we should be already 4 paragraphs minimum. We move to this, which will be a long section in the method section, where we will show how we operationalize all of our concepts. Because if you go back to the hypothesis, we at least have 1 concept, concept A, and concept B. So happiness and financial stability. At least we have these 2. So those are the dependent and the independent variable. In our study, happiness will be the dependent variable, and the independent will be whatever you will get. So for example, financial stability. And that is because happiness is dependent on financial stability based on our study design. So this section is going to be quite long, because you need to write in at least 1 paragraph per variable why you are operationalizing that concept with that variable. So for example, how are you operationalizing happiness in your study? So to measure happiness, we use this set of questions, and then you really have to copy paste. Well, that's one approach, that you copy paste the questions in the body of the paper or the thesis, or you can create an appendix and you just refer to the appendix. You say, to see the questions, you read the appendix number 1. So that's definitely what you will be doing in this section. 1 paragraph per concept or per variable, where you discuss that happiness is operationalized like this. And something extremely important, in quant, you cannot make up a new questionnaire or a new instrument to measure something. You can't, because doing that requires previous research. So you can do a thesis only on developing a new survey, a new set of questions. If you want to measure happiness, and happiness has never been examined before, you need to first develop the questions to test if they work statistically, if they work numerically, quantitatively. It's difficult to do that, and also you need to have like a high level of math and statistics expertise. So the best thing to do for our level and for our knowledge, and also the time that we have, is to borrow from previous research. So you will say, I am borrowing this instrument from these other studies. These other studies have already used that. So I am borrowing the same questions and I am using them in my study. So that is basically what you are doing in here. For each variable, you do that. So you do that for happiness, you do that for financial stability, but also for the controls. You also need to explain, how are you measuring the age? Is it, that's quite stupid, but you have to discuss that. Why is age important as a control, and how are you measuring it? Are you distinguishing between business and engineering, for example? How do you do it? Maybe it's a dummy. 1 is for business, 0 for something else. Are you controlling for gender? Why and how are you doing it? All of this has to be 1 paragraph each. The good news is that I will help you with that, because since we will use the same variables because we're using the same survey, I can help you with that. I can give you the paragraph about where did we get that questionnaire. So I can write and I will give it to you, that you can just copy paste it in your report. Why are we using that survey and where it came from? But what you will have to add is the reliability diagnostic. When we have the workshop, I will explain this. But reliability diagnostic is a very quick statistical test to show that our instrument as a group makes sense. So we usually measure a variable or a concept not with only 1 question. We don't ask, are you happy, yes or no? or from 1 to 10, how happy you are? That's very risky because it's only 1 question measuring a big concept. So generally we ask more than 1. We ask 4, 5, 6 questions aiming to the same concept. So the reliability diagnostic is a statistical test that we do to measure that the behavior of the questions is a bit similar, and then we are actually measuring the same thing. I will show you how it works when we do the workshop. So I will give you the explanation for all of these paragraphs. It will be like 2 pages or something like that, because we have, I think, 5 controls at least, and then the 2 variables. And the reliability diagnostic, you will add it. So don't worry, I will give you more details during the workshop about this. After that, we move towards the data analysis. I will talk, you will also have more idea about data analysis when we have the workshop, but it's basically saying, how did you analyze the data? So once that you did the survey, you collected, and then you coded all of these things, then you need to explain how did you analyze it. So it has to be, again, the same idea, justifying why that method of analysis is the best, showing what you did, like this being descriptive, and benchmarking your choices. That's more or less what you have to do. So in your case, you will be doing linear regression model. You will do, you need to justify why is that important. We will talk about that in the workshop. And then you need to explain very descriptive what you did. So you will say that you collected, you kind of coded in, you analyze the data in SPSS, and then you describe how you did it. And finally, 1 paragraph about ethics, like how did you, from the quantitative perspective, how did you manage the data? How did you gain consent? We will also talk about that when we prepare the survey, but it's also usually 1 paragraph. So it's, I would say, 1 paragraph here, 1 paragraph here, 1 paragraph here, 1 paragraph here, 1 paragraph per variable. So probably 7 paragraphs in here, 1 paragraph here, 1 paragraph here. So that's more or less how much you have to write. I would say in the end will be like 4 or 5 pages. I don't remember if that's what we ask in the rubric, but I think that's how it should be. In a thesis, it's much longer. In a thesis, because in a thesis you have to be super transparent, and you need to. So in a thesis, like maybe 15 pages, because you have to be extremely detailed on everything, especially ethics, for example. So before I finish this video, I want to highlight something that is relevant to this assignment. And it is that, but in the workshop, it will be clear. If you don't understand what I'm saying now, don't worry. You will test if happiness is affected by financial stability, right? And when you do that statistical test, you will also control, we call control, and you will learn about control in the workshop, but we also need to control for age, gender, all of these things. We don't care if these are significant or not, if these other variables are relevant or not, but we need to put them in the model, because then statistically we are going to measure if everything works. So something important about this assignment is that in the survey, you will see that we are going to measure at least 6 different factors. So financial stability, emotional stability, like university pressure, things like that. We're going to measure at least 6. What we are going to do is that each group will choose one and will set a hypothesis. But the other variables, like, for example, if you are doing the financial stability, maybe the emotional stability, you will use it as a control. So that's a bit strange now, but in the workshop, it will be clearer. So you will have basically 3 models. One model where you only test the relationship, that's model 1. Model 2 with the controls, the general controls like age, sex, all of these things, general controls. And a third model where you include these other controls, so age, sex, blah, blah, but also emotional stability, university pressure, the variables from the other groups. So I will explain the workshop and we'll do it. Don't worry about it. So that's basically it. I hope that this is useful for you, so you can tick if you have all of these things in your paper, and then it will be clear what not to miss.